Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Confident Hypnotherapist podcast. This episode, what can I say about this wonderful lady? I know her mission is to elevate hypnotherapy globally, and she has absolutely done that. She's not just a hypnotherapist, she's an author, she's a speaker, she's a mentor, she's a coach, she's a trainer, she's a creator of HypnoFit and the expert hypnotherapist system. There's so much that this lady has done and continues to do for our industry that I'm truly delighted to be able to speak to Helen Mitas. Helen, how are you
Thank you for
today?
having me. Thank you so much for having me. I feel very honored. Thank you so much.
Now, this is a different kind of conversation for me to have because I do know you and I know you fairly well. I was in your mentoring group. In fact, I think you were one of my trainers when I was going through the Academy of Hypnotic Science as well. You came and taught us NLP. And I've known you for many years now. So I kind of know a bit of your backstory. But I guess for anyone who's listening who doesn't know your backstory, can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to hypnotherapy? How did you discover it in the first place?
Okay, so for me, it started, when was it? It was 1997. So the late 90s is when I was going through depression and chronic anxiety. It was at the point where I was having issues with my first marriage and needed to leave that marriage. And it was very traumatic. I had a little boy at the time. And through hypnotherapy, I was able to connect to my inner guidance and understand that everything will be okay and fight through the fear and do what I needed to do for me, as opposed to for anyone else. I had to do it for me. And so really, in terms of how I discovered hypnotherapy, I didn't know it was hypnotherapy at the time, because in the late 90s in Victoria, it was illegal to actually say that we were doing hypnotherapy. So I didn't even know it was hypnotherapy. I attended the most amazing course, which was run by a clinical psychologist who also did hypnotherapy at his retreats, but he didn't call it hypnotherapy, he called it guided imagery. And the course was called Human Relations for Everyday Living. And it was like, oh, if they only taught this at school. Yeah. If they only taught this at school, the world would be different. And, the world is changing, because just the other day, my niece's daughter was awarded wellness captain at her primary school. So
fantastic.
How amazing. And that's where we are moving. We are moving along that path. You can, it's happening in corporate, it's happening at our schools. And I have no doubt that that kind of curriculum is going to be the curriculum of the future, which is, what do we do with our emotions? How do we navigate our life? What are values? The really important stuff, not algebra.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And to hear that schools are embracing that now is just wonderful.
I know.
Particularly after the year we had and the experiences that the past 12 months has offered the globe. I feel that being aware of how to process those experiences and to do it in a healthy way is more important than ever now. And if they're starting to do that at school, that's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, totally. So that's where we're shifting, we're moving, we're evolving. And it's just a wonderful time to be alive. It really is.
What drives you to be it? Because, I know you and I know you're driven. I know you're passionate. I know that you genuinely care about every single person you work with, whether they're a client or, a trainee. What drives you at the end of the day? What are the values that are most important to you?
In terms of the values that are most important to me, I would say that, integrity is the one that comes up first for me. It's really important for me to have integrity and to come always from a place of integrity, no matter who I'm speaking to. But in terms of what drives me, it's this absolute knowing that I have a mission. And I'm very fortunate to be alive during this time. I feel that being my age, which is 52, in this incredible year of 2021, it's a really good age. I feel that if I was 22 during this year, I wouldn't be ready or understanding or embracing or seeing the opportunities of everything that's going on around me. But being this age, after what I've been through and what I now know, it's almost like such a gift because I really can embrace and see everything from the bigger picture. So in terms of what drives me, I think that, I was brought up with a really hard work ethic, and, that's just the way our family operates, and they're the values that were passed on. And so, that kind of doing, but these days it's not just about doing, but it's about purposeful and conscious doing. And really for myself, sorry to interrupt, but just one more thing, which is that for myself, having witnessed members in my family who were treated with medication when they had depression, and seeing how it really did not support them in the long term and really almost put them into victim mode and put them into a really disempowered state, made me put the fire in my belly in terms of there is another way, and that we are able to overcome our biggest challenges by connecting to who we are in a safe and natural way. So I was seeing my niece, one of my nieces at a very young age, being put on medication and antipsychotic medication when she did not need that. She was just going through very difficult, challenging times, experiencing depression, anxiety, and all that medication made her enabled it was almost like the system was enabling her symptoms as opposed to helping her become empowered. And so witnessing that from someone that I adored, loved, and cherished, it felt like it was a mission for me to help hypnotherapists, empower their clients safely and naturally.
Absolutely. A lot of the things that you're talking about there obviously resonate with me on many different levels there. And I know that, you and I have both spoken about over the past 12 months, I've had what I believe is a bit of a spiritual awakening. And, I struggle to find the words to be able to articulate what it is I'm going through. And I absolutely deeply admire the articulation that you have, the way you find the words to express what that spiritual experience is for you. When did you become aware of the fact? When did you start to have that spiritual awakening? And what was it that signaled to you that something was changing, something was being made aware for you?
Okay, so this is a very different response to what anybody would think that I would say, but Elvis Presley.
I get it. I completely get it. Yes.
So what actually happened was, so I always had an understanding and a knowing that what we see is not all there is. Like I always knew that. That's something I always knew. Some miracles happened in our family. Going back, with my own son. So when he was 9 years old, he was in an accident at school. It was a gymnastics accident, and he was rushed to the hospital. I was told that he was probably going to be paralyzed, and he had 3 fractures on his back. Now, my family, who is a very religious family, because of things that happened in our own family, where my elder sister got diagnosed with breast cancer some 30 years ago, and she was given 12 months to live, and through prayer and so on, she's still alive. Okay, so at the time she had 3 little children, and she got breast cancer in her 30s. She now has 4 grandchildren. And I saw some miracles happen in front of me that made me know that this is not all there is. There's way more than just this. And then when that happened to Peter, my son, my mother actually did like a prayer that was very powerful with all the head people of the Greek Orthodox Church in Cyprus, where everybody stopped and prayed that night for Peter. The next morning, when another x-ray was taken, there was the fractures were gone.
It's incredible.
And the surgeon, who, was an atheist, he called him Miracle Boy. He said, "This is our miracle boy." And it was, to me, it showed me and proved to me again that there is way more than what we can see with the naked eye. Mm-hmm. And in fact, when you look at it and you think about it from a, almost scientific perspective, to think that in this massive universe, and we're just a tiny speck of that, and that just because this is all we see, and to think, well, this is all there is, to me, feels like a very limited way of thinking.
I agree.
So, but I don't judge people who that's what they choose to see. That's their choice. Okay.
That's their reality. Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on so that was me knowing always that there was more than just what we see, that there was a power greater than us surrounding us. But what that looked like, I wasn't sure. How that could help me, I wasn't sure. But it changed in 2015 when I was looking at a documentary on Graceland, which is Elvis's birthplace. And at the time, I said to my husband, John, I said to him, I have to go to Graceland. I just had this immediate feeling in my body. I have to go to Graceland. Like, I adore Elvis Presley. I've always adored him. There's something about not just the singer and the entertainer, but the man that, I just feel this connection with him. And I said, next year, no matter what, I'm going to Graceland. So it wasn't a matter of, how are we going to arrange it? Because I was extremely busy. What are we going to do? The logistics of it, I just knew. When you have that knowing, next year is the year. Well, the very next morning, I got an email in my inbox from somebody in the United States that I'd never heard of before, who said to me, we're inviting you to be a presenter at our conference in the United States. I've never been invited before. So this was the beginning. And the first thing I did was I Googled, how far is St. Louis from Memphis? And I found out it was 4.5 hours drive. And it was like, I just responded, yes. And he was like shocked, because he actually had put out this invitation but didn't expect me to say yes. And when I arrived in the United States, I did a number of presentations that week. And the whole theme was I was going to honor Elvis. So, I played music during my presentations. They were all Elvis songs. The last slide of every presentation was a quote, and it was an Elvis quote. It was like it was like my kind of dedication. And everything changed for me when I went to America. So the first thing that changed for me from a business perspective was that first of all, before going there, it was like, I don't know if I can teach Americans anything. Like, who am I? I don't know. I don't know what they know. And when I went there, it was like this outpouring of love, acceptance that I didn't get from Australians. I was training, I was mentoring and so on, but there seemed to be a lot of polarity in my audience. Like, people either liked me or didn't, resonated with me or didn't. And, Australians are not so, they're not so showy.
Yeah.
And there's also the tall poppy syndrome. And so, a lot of people resent any kind of success that they see. Whereas Americans were completely like, and as soon as I arrived, it was like, oh, these are my people. Like, they're my people. They get me. They understand. They see my heart. I felt like for the first time, I was actually seen, like who I was. And they really, really touched me. And I was saying the story about how I got there with the whole Elvis experience in the audience. And who was sitting in the audience but William Mitchell, who's the one who invited me there. And he's also a minister and a brilliant hypnotist and trainer. And he just said, "Thank you, Lord. Elvis Presley brought Helen to us." And following that, so it completely shifted my career to a accelerated pace that I could never have even thought of myself. So in the audience that I had presented to were event organizers and conference holders from conferences all over America, who instantly invited me then to go to their conferences. Instantly, because I was going to the United States, I wanted to be able to give them something, sell them something. So I created my first online program, the 15 Steps to Hypnosis Business Success. I created that for that audience because I knew I couldn't deliver it live to them, when they bought it. And they bought it before it was actually finished because I hadn't finished it in time. So that's the trust they had in me. It wasn't even finished and they paid for it. And then following that, I went to Memphis. I went to Graceland, and it was the most emotional, incredible day of my life. And the day after, I went to Tupelo, to the birthplace of Elvis Presley. And as divine synchronicity has it, I bumped into one of his childhood friends.
No way.
Guy Harris, who remained friends with him to the end of his life. We had this incredible connection. We sat and spoke for about an hour. He opened up the trunk or boot to his car. He had all these photos and stories that you didn't read about. And he gave me an original picture of Elvis in 1954. This is before he became famous, with Guy Harris. And it's actually at the back of it, it's written in Guy's writing. He gave it to me as a gift. So I am one... What's the terminology? Being removed, what's the...
1 degree.
1 degree.
1 degree from Elvis.
From Elvis. I knew that is no accident. What happened to me was no accident. Because it completely transformed where I was. And it's almost like I was a hard worker and I would work hard and I had this business plan, I had the strategy and I was doing everything I could. But this was just following my heart. There was no strategy here, but because I was going, then all these other things happened. I created my online program. I was invited to other events. I subsequently became awarded Hypnotist of the Year to the Mid-America Conference in Chicago in 2018. All of that, invited to speak in London, New York, Las Vegas, Chicago, Boston. All of that completely put me into a different, almost elevated category where I was able to access a market that was much bigger. And that...
You could say they couldn't help falling in love with you by the sounds of it.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say, Lawrence, is I didn't map that out.
Yeah.
I didn't create a business plan for that. And I believe that the biggest changes that happen are the ones where we follow our heart.
Yeah. It's a synchronicity that seems to occur from all of that.
That's right. Where you just trust the journey and just flow, just allow it to flow, because we always connect the dots backwards, not forwards. Things happen and you don't know why they've happened until later on. But when you just surrender to it, and so many other things have happened since then where I've just said yes. I don't know why I'm saying yes, but yes. And when you say yes, it just, again, takes you to another level, and almost following joy. Because really, what was I doing by saying I am going to Graceland? It almost seemed like, it felt like this. It was like, I can't leave this earth until I've done that. Like, I have to go there. Like, I have to go to his, he's buried there. I have to go to the place that he was buried. I have to honor him in that way. And it really feels like the energy of Elvis has done that. And since then, I have, immersed myself into spirituality and how that all works and so on. And it's just, when you connect in like that, it's almost like you've got a team on the other side.
I love how you said the word connect in there, because whenever I talk about spirituality, I talk about it as being a connection, that feeling that I'm connected to something greater. And, you know, I notice it particularly when I'm in session with people. When I feel that connection there, it's almost like I can have that trust, that faith that the work I do is coming from this higher wisdom, this higher understanding. And it's wonderful when I feel that connection there. And in the same way that I'm hearing you talk about, you know, meeting Guy and the connection that he would have made for you to Elvis, and the place that you were at, and enriching it and making it a better experience for you.
Absolutely.
You talk about trusting your journey too. You know, I think if people are worried about if they're good or not, they perhaps just need to recognize they're on a journey and to trust where they're at right now.
That's right. And, you know, in terms of the journey and trusting where they are right now, and you said, you know, the whole reason you created this podcast was to help people feel confident. And more than ever, Lawrence, the way that I teach now is quite different to how I used to teach. So, you know, I'm an ex-economist, ex-secondary school teacher. And the way that I used to teach years ago was really like, do this and then do this and then do this and then do this. If the client says this, you say this back. And it's now the way that I teach is very different. I give them the system and the structure, but what my job is, I feel, is to help them understand that there's a reason the client's connected with them at that point. It's because they can help them. And, you know, as an example, I just finished teaching level 1 certification for hypnosis and NLP for people who are just breaking into the industry for the first time. And one of the tasks I got them to do is to, you know, okay, this is a script. Now I want you to change that script and put your own wisdom in there according to this client that is their partner in front of you. So in other words, use your own discernment and taught them how to be discerning so that they're not dependent on a teaching, but they understand that it's not just their training, it's their life experience, it's who they are. All of that is giving them the gift that they need. And so when I train hypnotherapists now, yes, I give them the steps, but more than that, what I give them during the retreats is the belief in themselves.
I love this. I think that's wonderful, because, you know, you quite often come across trainings where it's pretty much, as you said, do this step, this step. And in the end, what they're really creating are people who are doing imitations of the person that trained them. Whereas what you're doing is really helping them define who they uniquely are as a hypnotherapist from the start.
Exactly. And the other part that I train them in is, you know, just say whatever I teach you during this time, just say there's a part of it that you don't resonate with. Don't do it. You know, only do the part that you absolutely resonate with. Make sure that it resonates with you. You know, if I give you 20 pointers and 2 pointers don't resonate, leave it. Okay. And if any trainer says to you that this is absolutely the only way you could do it, otherwise you're not going to achieve those results, I call BS on that. Like, that's, you know, you have to trust your own resonance. More than ever, I think this year and what we've come out of in terms of 2020, Lawrence, is about resonance. So 2020 has taught us to be very discerning and to discover what our truth is. Because with so much polarity and division in the world in terms of pro-mask, anti-mask, pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, what that has helped us do is go, hey, what do I believe? And that is gold. Like, what do I believe? And my belief is my truth. And when you're helping your clients in from your truth and integrity, you actually can't go wrong. There is no going wrong, because this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be helping your clients in a really authentic way.
I keep having words that you said a few moments ago cycling through my head. And I think that they're really powerful, and that for listeners, it might have escaped them if they don't stop and think about it, but you said that the client has come to you for a reason.
Yeah.
And those words are just cycling through my head now as I talk to you over and over. If you know, you believe that there is synchronicity, if you believe that the universe is unfolding in a way that is meant to for you, then that is such a powerful idea, isn't it? To know that you can't go wrong because that person is meant to see you, and you are either meant to help them or they're meant to help you, or both.
Usually both. There is something usually, every connection between two people, there is something that you're going to get from that person that you need for yourself. There's something, and and the other thing that I want, therapists to be aware of is that, I've been doing this for 11 years now, but even 11 years ago, as a new hypnotherapist, with only able to read scripts and not able to improvise or get that hypnotic patter natural because it is a language, I was still helping those people make massive transformations in their life because I can see those people now and where they are and what's going on for them. So it didn't matter whether I am Helen in 2021 or Helen in 2010. That person was supposed to cross my path at that time.
And, you're talking about divisiveness before between masks and anti-masks and Trump and anti-Trump. Within our industry, we have script and anti-script. That's a divisiveness. And I find it fascinating because I would simply say the magic is not in the words. And I think that statement can be used on both sides of those camp, but really it comes down to the intention that you bring into the session and what you do with those words. So if you need a script to have those words, I would say use the script. But if you have, but make sure you bring the intention. But if you don't need the script, then make sure you still bring the intention. It's interesting how we can debate about these things in the community, isn't it?
It is. And I did a live, I don't know if you saw it, on the Hypnosis Business Success Facebook
did. It was
page
beautifully done.
on script shaming. And there was a massive response. And I've had a number of hypnotherapists contact me privately and say, thank you so much. I was too embarrassed to admit to it. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like, are you embarrassed that you use a recipe to make, something for the family? Like, is that an embarrassment? That recipe, somebody did it because it worked. So, there's no shame. So we need to move away from our egos to think that, we are better because, and to understand that we're all at different parts of the journey, and to encourage and support one another, because by all of us being successful, we're going to help our profession. We're already moving really, really quickly. We're going to help our profession move so quickly that people will automatically think of hypnotherapists when they're facing life's biggest challenges. But if we have a lack mindset and think that I need to prove that I am better, and by proving that I am better, it means, Lawrence, you're worse, then what we're doing is actually a divide. And what we're doing is staying small, and we're staying in a lack mindset. So somebody doesn't have to be right for somebody else to be wrong. Like using the scripts, great, you get great results, awesome, well done. You don't use the scripts, you get great results, awesome, well done.
Exactly.
It's all about the outcome.
Apply. I think it comes back to that. We were talking about the training before, and how, through no fault of the trainers, but there is that temptation of people creating mini versions of that trainer. But it's a fascinating kind of debate that goes on internally. And you're right, it really comes down to, what is this debate really about ultimately? I do have to wonder, like, we often talk about, higher vibrations and being able to find ourselves connecting up higher. Is there any kind of rituals you do? Is there any kind of things that you do as a daily self-care that helps you to be able to get that higher vibration, that high frequency for yourself?
Yeah. And I'm going to give this as, like, I reckon this is like number one gem for me. And it really, I only became aware of this kind of skill at the beginning of COVID, when I found myself experiencing emotions that I didn't want to have, which was frustration and anger at people who didn't have the same belief system as me. And so a really powerful technique, which in fact I used this morning, was to step outside of myself and watch myself and observe myself. So as an example, this morning, Lawrence, I had a meetup. So the meetup was supposed to start at 10 o'clock, which it did, and it was brilliant. Had over 100 people. But before then, I had a roof tiler who told me he was going to be finished by a certain time, and he's banging on the roof. And so like literally 10 minutes before I run upstairs and I say to him, you've got to finish. Like, and I can feel myself getting like, you know, you've got to finish. You know, you told me you'd be done by now. And then I actually came downstairs and I breathed and I said to myself, that was very 3D of me. So that was a very 3D response, which is 3D is operating in, you know, it's not going to work out, concern, worry, anxiety, anger, frustration, all of that is very 3D. So I stopped and I actually said, hey, angels, I realized that was really 3D. Forgive me, I'm like human. Let's just move on to the rest of the day in a 5D sort of way. And so it's almost like I saw myself getting angry. Like I saw myself getting frustrated. I stepped outside of myself and went, wow, you know, that's not necessary. It's not 10 o'clock yet. So why are you worrying about 10 o'clock? It's not 10 o'clock yet. It's not as if it's banging and the meetup has started. So it's about living in the moment. In this moment, what's happening? In this moment, and at 10 o'clock, there was no sound. There was no noise. So, and then I was straight into the, you know, into the mode of the meetup. So, you know, step number one, I love steps. So step number one, observe yourself. Like observe yourself having that reaction. Step number two, be compassionate towards yourself for having that reaction. Like don't like, oh, bloody hell, why did I get myself so upset for? Because I'm human. Because I'm not an ascended master. You know, there's a few ascended masters who have ascended, but that's not me. And so when we are human, we have a very human experience. And to say, and to be totally loving and compassionate ourselves for having a human experience. Like, yeah, of course, you know, I totally understand why I reacted like that this morning. It's all good. It's fine. Okay. So number one, observe yourself. Number two, be compassionate and non-judgmental and loving towards every version of you. Number three, allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Just let it.
Yep.
Number four, see it pass through you and then focus on this now moment. I had a student in my class yesterday and we went through, you know, one of the exercises was, what is it that you are, what's one of your shoulds? And she said, well, she comes from Singapore, so their culture is different. And she one of her shoulds is, I should not feel these emotions. Okay. So what I said to her was, if you don't allow yourself to feel the emotions, what's going to happen is that those emotions are they're just going to keep building until they're your trigger every single time. Your emotions are your inner senses. And so even during the beginning of COVID, when I was feeling myself frustrated and angry, allow myself to feel it, observe myself feeling it, and then it's gone. So be okay with feeling it. It's a good thing.
I'm reading The Untethered Soul again at the moment, Michael Singer, and I'm up to that wonderful part where he's talking about energy and how there's the blockage of energy when we don't let it pass through the moment. And it's truly reminded me of that, what you're saying, how, you know, if you don't let it pass, you spend so much energy fighting it and working against it, when in fact you could just allow it to pass through you with self-compassion, with acceptance, with an understanding that this is just a moment. It's truly powerful.
Totally. That's exactly right. And when you mention vibration and frequency, when we see everything as vibration and frequency, we don't take it personally. So if somebody is reacting in a way that is angry, frustrated, judgmental, they're just operating at a low frequency, and that's okay. Rather than saying, oh, that's really bad. Like I'm changing terminology in my own resource books that I give trainings with my hypnotherapists. Like I no longer call bad habits, I call them unwanted habits, because we're putting a negative connotation to something that is okay.
Neither good nor bad. It simply is.
Yeah, it simply is. It's just that I don't want to have it anymore for whatever reason. So, all these labels that we give ourselves and that we see, they either lower our vibration or increase it. And, that question is such a good question, which is, how do you increase your vibration? By being conscious in every now moment of, is my vibration low or is it high? And as an example, the other night I was sitting there watching the news, and I was noticing my vibration go really down when I was watching what was happening to the aged care homes and the scenes, the horror scenes. Like I was feeling like I was going to be sick. And I couldn't. I turned the TV, and some people might say, and I turned it off. Some people might say, well, that's making yourself ignorant of what's going on around you. But you see, that's not my vocation. I'm not going to help the aged care system. That's not my gig in this world. It's not my purpose. So why watch it? So my purpose is to help hypnotherapists feel empowered so that they can empower their clients. That's my purpose. That's my road. That's where I'm going. I don't need to know about child trafficking or aged care homes or, which leader is meant to be there. So why watch it? Because I'm not going to help. That's the way that I see it. If I'm not going to help, then why would I sit there and watch it and lower my vibration? Because I'm not going to help the situation. So I'm better off focusing on my journey, my path, shining my light. And that way, by shining my light, you're increasing the light of humanity. Every person, all they need to do is shine their own light. That's all they need to do. You don't even have to help clients to shine your light. You can shine your light going to the grocery store, okay, and smiling to someone who needed a smile from you. And that is shining your light. And that is making a difference. We don't have to transform the life of a client to actually shine our light. So if we all just did that, what difference can I make in this moment? Doesn't matter whether I'm seeing clients or not. Then that's going to impact everything.
So much there to take in, but you're so absolutely right as well. I wonder how many people go into their sessions with clients and are almost convinced from the moment they walk in that they're not going to be able to help that person. And in that moment, with all that negative focus, is just bringing themselves down, down, down. There's so much there that you've said where hopefully it can help them to step out of themselves and for a moment just recognize that even just being in a room with that person, being there for the other person, is creating a possibility for something great to happen if they allow it to be that.
And to know, Lawrence, that when they're in that session with that client, that they are not alone.
Yeah.
They are being supported by the other side who is holding the space for them, and that they can't go wrong. Like that they've got their back, that they are being supported, that they are being cheered on. And it can't go wrong when you have that belief that there is so much power in having the belief and holding the belief that you are being supported by the other side. Like I know I have a team. I know I have a team on the other side. Do you know how empowering that is?
Yeah.
To absolutely know it.
It comes back to that old NLP question. If you knew that you couldn't fail, what would you do? And in many ways, it feels like it's the answer to that. It's like, I've got a team behind me. I cannot fail.
I can't. And, you would have experienced, you talked about this before with yourself, which is, you're in a session and words come out of your mouth. And this was before my big spiritual breakthroughs. Like when I was really in the zone with a client and I would come out of the session, I'd go, wow, like I was amazing. Like I can't make that stuff up, like how did that even come out of my mouth? Like the exact right words at the exact right time, which was perfect and put everything together. Like I couldn't even have written that up with my mind if I tried. And that's because it didn't just come from me. I'm convinced of it.
You know what? This really has been as much about musicians as it has been about spirituality. But Elton John once said that when he sat down to write a song, if the song didn't come to him in 15 minutes, he would step away. But quite often, all of his biggest hits were songs that came to him in the space of 15 minutes. And he would say, I didn't write it. It felt like they came from something else. I was simply the vessel that received that song.
Totally, totally.
I get what he means when he says that. When I'm in a creative state and allowing myself to be open to that creativity, it can feel like it's coming from somewhere else and I'm just letting it flow through me, which is a wonderful experience. I love it when it happens.
Totally, totally. And if I can just say one more thing, which is when you're in the room with a client, what I see is their soul. I don't see the soul, but I feel this is a light being and I'm a light being.
Yeah.
So I will help this light being. Like, it's going to happen. It has to happen.
I completely get that. I've been talking the last year about how I just understand spirituality as being about energy. That was the turning point for me. And it was the realization, because I've always said that I wasn't spiritual. I didn't get it. But then something happened last year where I began to understand the connection between spirituality and energy and the exchange of energy. And in that moment, I realized not only that I could understand what spirituality was, but that I'd always been spiritual. It's just I didn't understand what it was that I was experiencing in that moment. I just put it down as being rapport or something else. But in fact, it was a combination of many things that I could feel tangibly. It was quite an eye-opening, awakening moment, to say the least.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Now, if people want to reach out to you and get in touch or do some training or something like that with you, how can they do that, Helen?
Probably the best thing is helenmitas.com, that website. Under experiences, always shows what the next event is. Or my Facebook page, Hypnosis Business Success, under the events. There's always events there that we've got. So,
including your fabulous meetup that you do every month. Always amazing guests, always incredible value. And you know what? One of the things the pandemic has allowed us to do is to offer that globally now. How wonderful.
It's incredible, because when I first started that meetup, it was in Melbourne, and everywhere I would go, I would get people saying to me, oh, I wish we had your meetup here. Can you start a meetup here? Can you start a meetup there? And I said, look, you start a meetup there. But, it didn't occur to me to actually put it on virtual. And now it's the best because so many people from all around the world, and they get a recording if they can't make it.
Yep.
So,
and it's creating greater networks globally now. I feel more connected with people all over the world. I'm running a workshop at the moment, and I had people from Ireland and Portugal and Belgium and Oregon and New Zealand. It's incredible to feel that we're that connected internationally now. It's wonderful.
We're really lucky. And the thing is, when you think about that, we're all moving along this ascension path and we're growing in terms of our consciousness is evolving. We can now speak to many more people. So even Jesus himself, at the end of the day, he was speaking to a group of people, in a location. He wasn't able to speak to that many people. We have the absolute privilege of speaking to people from around the world. And, all we need to do is speak our truth and shine our light. That's all we need to do.
Yeah. Helen Mitas, I adore you and love you. Thank you so much for the chat today, for offering some really wonderful insights there about everything from spirituality to Elvis Presley and Graceland. It's been a wonderful ride. So thank you so much.
You're most welcome. It was my absolute pleasure, and I love you too.
We'll see you all next time. In the meantime, stay safe, take care. We'll see you soon.